You don't join the Roman army to become a hero. You join because you're hungry, because the bowl at home is empty, the roof leaks, and tomorrow doesn't exist unless someone pays you to survive today. So when the recruiter holds up a shining helmet and says pay, food, honor, you don't hear glory, you hear relief. And that's exactly how Rome gets you. Because the first rule of your life as a Roman soldier is simple. You are not owned by war. You are owned by law, owned by ledgers, owned by stamps, owned by deductions that touch your pay before you ever do. If you've ever felt trapped by bills, by fees, by a system that always takes first comment one word right now, survive. Because that word is the only thing that makes sense here. You wake before the sun. Not because you are disciplined, because someone with authority decided your sleep doesn't matter. A whistle cuts through the dark. Boots hit the ground. You stand up fast. Because slow isn't a personality flaw in a legend. It's a liability. You march until your feet stop belonging to you. You drill until your arms feel like borrowed tools. And all the while, you keep one promise in your head. At least I'll be paid. That promise is the bait. On paper, you're a soldier. In reality, you are a moving expense. Helmet, not a gift. A cost. Sandals, not basic. A cost. Cloak.
That'll be 3 denarii.
Rations.
Hand them over.
Repairs. Replacements. Everything you touch has a price tag hidden under the word discipline. And the first time you learn this, it's not during battle. It's in a line, a pay line. Men stand shoulder to shoulder like warriors. But the feeling is the same as waiting for bread. Quiet, tense, humiliating. The clerk drops coins into your hand. For half a second, you feel like a person again. Then the coins leave your hand, like they were never yours. Fees, gear, food, fines, deductions. The word is so clean it sounds harmless. Like trimming a trade. Like a minor adjustment. But you feel it where it hurts. In your stomach. In your breath. In the hollow space behind your ribs
right here,
when you
Marcus.
realize you're
You
still
let us
hungry
down.
after you got paid. This is the poverty trap. Roman style. They don't pay you enough to become free. They pay you just enough to stay available. And if you think the worst part is being poor, you're not ready for the second rule. Rome doesn't just take your money. Rome takes your dignity. Because humiliation is cheaper than mercy and far more effective than violence. There's
Extra
a board
duty.
in the camp. A simple board. Names, numbers, debts, penalties. It sits where everyone can see it. Because it isn't there to inform you. It's there to shape everyone else. When your name goes up, the punishment isn't the board itself. It's what happens after. Men who spoke to you yesterday suddenly discover
your
silence
bravery
today.
secures the
A
glory
friend
of
who
Rome.
shared the jokes
Today we
now
celebrate
studies
your
the ground
sacrifice and
like your
unwavering
poverty might
loyalty
be
to the
contagious. I slide off you. Conversations pause when you arrive. Someone laughs, but not loudly. Just enough for you to hear it and wonder if you imagined it. That quiet laughter. That's Rome training the group. Because a scared group is
This
an
broken
obedient group.
shield is a
And now
testament to
your
the
debt
bravery
isn't
of our
just
legions.
numbers. It's a
Hail,
label.
Marcus, defender
You
of
are the
Rome.
man on the board. You are the warning. The officer doesn't need to raise his voice. He points at your name and lets the crowd do the rest. He says your debt out loud, like a sentence, like a verdict. And then, because the system is elegant in its cruelty, your punishment becomes practical. Reduced rations, extra duty, night watch, hauling stones, digging trenches. You don't lose life in a dramatic moment. You lose it slowly. Through exhaustion and hunger and the constant pressure of being seen as less. You want to know what fear feels like here. It's not the enemy's spear. It's the sound of leather tearing. A strap snaps on your armor. A buckle cracks. Your shield splits in a place nobody notices until inspection day. Because inspection day isn't about readiness. It's about control. Rows of men stand straight. While an officer searches for a flaw he can turn into a lesson. And he finds yours. He taps the crack in your shield like he's found proof of weakness in your blood. Then he lifts it up so the entire unit can see. The crack is small, the shame is enormous. Step forward. 2 words, and you feel your face heat up under every stare. He doesn't have to call you useless. The crowd will do that for him. He doesn't have to threaten you. Your stomach does that for him. Because you already know what comes next. A penalty step.
Marcus,
another
step
deduction.
forward.
Less food.
Your payment is
more
ready.
work. The system doesn't need to break your bones. It breaks your weak. It breaks your confidence. It breaks your social oxygen. And this is how the law owns you. Not by force. By making you too poor to breathe. So you do what desperate men do. You borrow a bite of bread, a sip of water, a small favor. But borrowing in camp isn't kindness. It's a hook. Because debts don't stay small.
Care to
They grow in
explain this,
silence.
soldier?
They
I
grow in
lost it.
whispers.
I'm sorry.
They grow in remember this. And you owe me. And don't forget who helped you. The quartermaster smiles when you sign for new gear. Because he knows you can't refuse. The clerk doesn't pity you when he stamps your ration card. Because pity doesn't keep order. And the officer loves you most when you are trapped.
Marcus,
Because trapped
just a
men
few more
don't leave.
scrolls for you.
Don't
Keep
complain.
up the good
Don't
work.
question. They obey. You tell yourself it's temporary. I'll catch up. I'll work it off. And that's when the first twist hits you hard. Because you finally see the ledger clearly. Not the speeches. Not the flags. Not the shining helmet. The ledger. And the ledger says something you didn't want to believe. You are not being paid. You are being kept in debt. Your pay isn't just low, it's effectively negative. You work. You line up. You receive coins. And after fees, you still owe. That's the chain, not iron. Paper. A system that can claim you're free while proving you can't walk away. Because how do you live
Look at
when
you,
owe the
Marcus.
uniform
You are a
on your
disgrace
back?
to the Legion.
How do you
Clean
rest
that armor and
when rest
stand
is
up
something
straight
they
before
can
I have you
deduct?
flogged.
How do you protest when hunger is the punishment that never sleeps? This is why the board exists. This is why the shame is public. It's not just cruelty, it's economics. Public humiliation is cheap, and it keeps men from uniting. Now the camp has a story about you. The story is simple. He's desperate. He's risky. Don't stand
Please,
too
I
close.
cannot fill out
and that
anymore.
story is more
I've been here for
dangerous
weeks.
than any enemy outside the
these.
walls. Because it turns your own unit into a fence. No one shares food with the man on the board. No one shares information. No one shares protection. Not because they're evil, because fear makes people practical. And fear is Rome's favorite currency. At this point, you start thinking like a cornered animal. If the official system doesn't give mercy, maybe the unofficial one will. Maybe a small gift can soften a clock. Maybe a coin slipped quietly can protect your ration card. Maybe. But even that is a trap. Because the moment you try, the system doesn't have to catch you doing anything illegal. It just has to notice you're trying to escape. And now you're not just poor. You're watched. A whisper moves through the barracks. A look lingers too long. An officer smiles with the kind of warmth that means you're about to be used. Then the pressure changes. You're singled out more often. Not because you're the worst soldier. Because you're the most convenient example. They correct you loudly. They repeat your mistakes like a sermon. They make sure the unit sees your weakness in public so the unit learns the real rule. Stay invisible. Stay compliant. Stay grateful. Soon the board doesn't just say debt. It says something worse. It says you can't be trusted. Poverty becomes personality. Debt becomes character. And that's when you realize the most brutal part of being a Roman soldier isn't the marching, it's the social death. You can be surrounded by men and still be alone. You can stand in a crowd and feel like you're the only one exposed. You can fight beside someone and still know they'd step away if your name goes up again. Then the solution arrives. It always arrives when you're weakest. A paper is placed in front of you. A confession. A signature. A neat way to close a problem. They say it calmly. Sign it. And that this will end. Don't sign. And your rations disappear. Hunger becomes the pen pressing your hand down. Your stomach becomes the officer's voice. And just when you think you've reached the bottom, the second twist hits harder than the first. Because you finally see what the board and the dead were really for. You weren't punished because you were guilty. You were chosen because you were useful. The ledger had been edited, numbers shifted, lines rewritten. Your debt wasn't your debt at all. It was a cover, a shield for someone higher. An officer who needed a scapegoat. And you were perfect. Poor men don't have allies. Shamed men don't have defenders. Men on the board don't get believed. So the crowd turns fast. Not because they hate you. Because the official story is easier than the truth. Because asking questions is dangerous. Because everyone is quietly terrified that the next name on the board could be theirs. That's the genius of weaponized law. Truth becomes optional when power speaks. They point at you with confidence. They attach a label to your chest, like it's enough to end a life. One word: thief, liar, untrustworthy. And suddenly, the hunger isn't just hunger. It's a message.
I've been here for
You do
weeks.
not belong. They isolate you with special duty. Cold nights, quiet posts, places where no one can witness what happens to you. And then the first thing they cut isn't your status, it's your food. Because hunger bends men faster than threats ever could. So you try to pay. You turn your empty pouch inside out like a desperate joke. You offer everything you have, and it's still nothing. Because you can't buy fairness in a system built on fear. You can't negotiate with a machine that profits from your weakness. And that's the moment you stop chasing glory. Because glory is a story they sell. Survival is the only thing you can own. So you make a choice, not the heroic kind, the smart kind. You stop begging. You stop trying to be liked. You stop trying to be fair. And instead, you do the one thing the system can't tolerate. You gather proof. Quietly, patiently, you memorize numbers. You copy lines. You keep records. You don't swing a sword. Because swords solve problems loudly. You solve this one silently. Because the only thing that can beat law used as a weapon is proof that the law is being used as a weapon. And power notices the change. Power notices when prey stops trembling. When your eyes stop bleeding. When your posture stops shrinking. They try shame again. But shame only works when everyone agrees to participate. And once people sense the story might be wrong, the laughter gets quieter. The whispers hesitate. The certainty cracks, just like your shield did. You hold up the empty pouch, not as weakness, but as the entire point. This is what control looks like. Not chains, not battle. Deductions, hunger, public humiliation. A board with names designed to keep men divided. Owned by law, not because you're weak, but because the rules were built to keep you replaceable. So here's the question, and it's not for Rome. It's for you. If you were standing there with an empty pouch and your name on the board, would you choose glory or would you choose survive? Comment one word.